Hello everyone, myself Gautam Chakraborty, and in this video I shall give you a demonstration how to set up Agile Scrum project in Asana. It is important to understand that Asana is a flexible work management tool, not a dedicated Scrum tool like Jira or Azure DevOps. This means it has intuitive UI, excellent for task management, collaboration and tracking work in a highly visual way. But it lacks native Scrum artifacts like a dedicated sprint backlog, burn down charts, or velocity tracking. We will use Asana's feature like sections, fields, and rules to simulate this. This guide will show you how to effectively replicate the Scrum framework within Asana structure. First, we need to create the project. So from here, I have selected the project. Now, there are three options: blank project, user template, import project. So let me see what are the templates available here. Here from the more options, I have selected IT. There are lot of templates available here, from which I have selected sprint planning. Now I need to give a name of this project. Say the name of this project is an e-commerce platform. Now privacy, I have restricted it within my workspace, so I am not selecting it private to members. Create the project. Now if you see, when you just typically create the project, it will be in a Kanban board like fashion, where there will be multiple columns like backlog, prioritize, design. I shall have to change the name of these things. So first one is backlog, then I am just changing the name of the second column as sprint backlog. So initially I shall upload a set of backlog item directly from a CSV file so that it will be populated, and when a sprint will start, I shall drag the backlog items from backlog to sprint backlog. That means in the current sprint these backlog items will be worked on. Now let me change the name of the third column as to do. Then in progress, now I need to add additional one column. Like code review or QA, and drag it here, and finally it is done. So what will be the columns? Backlog, sprint backlog, to do, in progress, code review or QA, and finally it is done. So some new items were already created by default. I just need to delete those tasks first. Okay, So now my Kanban board is ready. Now I shall have to directly import the backlog items first in the Kanban. You can manually create the task and create each of the items here at within add task, but the problem is that in that case it will be a tedious job. If I have a set of items, maybe 10-15 items already there which I can put in the backlog, it is better to directly import it from a CSV file. I shall show you how to do that, but before that some additional changes will be required, that is the fields. So if you see, there are by default 3 fields are there: priority, product stage and cost. But for each backlog items there will be several other fields will be required for a standard Scrum kind of project. That is, how much story point will be associated with that, or in which sprint that particular item will be treated, what is the priority, what are the type, it may be epic, story, bug, technical dev, this kind of things. So these fields are not already there, so I shall have to create these custom fields. For that there is an option to add field. Now let me put one by one. First, story points. I have given field type as single select, and what are the options? Typically story points are Fibonacci series number starting from 1, so I am putting those value one by one. Maximum till 21. But one point is that if very large story point is there, it is recommended that it should be broken into smaller pieces so that it can be managed effectively. Otherwise, the bigger story point associated with any story, that means it is a very big piece of work, and there are a lot of associated risk will be there to complete it. So to avoid it, it is recommended always for any kind of big piece of work, we shall have to divide it in small pieces. Okay, now I just click the create field. So if you see, story point field already added. Next, I am creating the another field called sprint. And here I can put it as a simple text, or what are the different options: number, formula, ID, timer. Okay, I can put it as simple text. So the values can be initially, whenever a story is added in the backlog, the field sprint column will populate as backlog, but whenever it will be put in different sprint, as per as sprint 1, sprint 2, sprint 3, corresponding fields I shall have to update. Okay. Next field I am adding priority. Okay, so priority is already there, so you don't need to add priority. Then I am adding type. Type also I am selecting single select, and whatever the different options: epic, story, bug, and finally I have given the technical day. Okay, and if you see, there are other fields already there, like assignee, so to whom it will be assigned, it is already there, so I don't need to populate it. And there will be the task name and task description already there. So then the next thing, what I told earlier, I shall have to populate the backlog items, initial backlog items, and later if any backlog item need to be added, that can be added manually just with just add task feature. So I have given a set of 12 backlog items and populated with all the other fields like story point, priority, type, everything, and when I shall import it, it will automatically populate it there. See, all the backlog items which are populated from the CSV file is showing here. So if you need to do any adjustment or change, you can do it, either make changes, and if you think everything is correct, you can directly go to the project. Now here the comment is saying that it is importing 12 tasks. Let's see. So 12 backlog items already populated, whatever value I have given in the CSV file. Description is there, task name is there, priority is there, story point. So every field is populated, which are not required for the time being, like which are coming by default with Asana product stage. If required, you can populate it later post. So if it is required, you can populate it here, but for the basic things to work it as a Scrum project, so whatever additional fields are required, I have given it and populated it. Now I shall show in each Scrum ceremony how we can use Asana effectively. So my initial backlog items are already populated. So whenever any new item will come, I can easily create add task. I shall populate description and other required fields also. So based on the requirement, I shall have to put it, and here priority I shall have to select. Maybe it is a low priority item. Then story point at the time of adding new item in backlog, story point may not be available. It will be finalized during the backlog grooming session. So for the time being, I am keeping it open, not giving it. And in the sprint field, I am adding it at a backlog, because this item will go in backlog first. Type, maybe I can add it as a bug. And that's it for the time being. So now during the backlog grooming session, so we shall have to identify which stories we can pick up for the next sprints. Based on that, we shall have to do the estimation, and if any clarification required, we can do it and update the story or item appropriately, so that we shall spend less time during the sprint planning meeting. Now during sprint planning meeting, we shall have to, let me go to the list view. So sprint planning meeting, let me first identify which items we can pick up for the coming sprint. So traditionally, which are high level items we shall pick up first in the coming sprint, and also we need to think about the capacity of the team. So say for the time being, so let 3 items we can pick up for the next sprint, the coming sprint to work on. So here I shall select it and transition it going to the sprint backlog. This item also I am pulling to the sprint backlog, and maybe this medium item we can work on the current sprint. Let me go to the board view. So these 3 items are already populated in the sprint backlog. Now another thing we need to change here, because it is a coming sprint, maybe assume that this is the sprint 1, so we shall have to change the sprint field from backlog to sprint 1, so that it will be easily able to track it later, so which item was part of which sprint. If we don't change it, we shall not be able to track this. I updated is a sprint 1, and also during the sprint planning meeting we shall have to identify what will be the different subtasks associated, and what will be the definition done need to be identified earlier but not during the sprint planning. But here what are the subtasks will be there, and if any other additional requirements are there, maybe we shall have to capture any file or document everything that we can do it. Okay, so I'm not going into the details of these things in this video. I am just showing how in different phases or in different ceremonies we can effectively use Asana. So in this way, for every backlog item which we pulled in sprint 1, so first thing what we shall have to do it, we shall have to change it to sprint 1. Let me do it for this. Okay, and also during the sprint planning meeting, other things like which task will be assigned to whom, that also we need to identify. All the details should be populated at the end of the sprint planning meeting for all of the items which are picked in that corresponding sprint, so that when we shall start the execution of the sprint on daily execution, so everything will be available in front of us. Before going to the daily stand-up activities, let's first assign the tasks which are taken in the current sprint to assign available developers. Let's first assign the task to Prakash. Second task I am assigned to Tarun, and the third task I am assigning to Sanjay. So all of these tasks are assigned to different developers, and also story point is assigned. Everything is complete. Now I need to move it to do. From there in progress. Let me quickly do it in the list view. First one, I am first moving it to to-do section. Second one also to-do section, and third one also to-do section. Okay. So all three tasks are now in to-do section. Now, another important thing I want to show here is we can set up some custom rules so that whenever some event will occur, specific event will occur, it will trigger some actions. To implement some custom rules, so here we can add new rules, or I have already set up 2 rules. I am showing you how this will work. So first one is whenever a task will move to code review or QA bucket. So now here Sanjay is the lead developer, so ideally he will review all of the completed coding of the task before pushing it to the QA. But some of the tasks are assigned to Sanjay also, right? So in that case, Sanjay should not be the person to review that thing. Another person should continue the review of the task which was assigned to Sanjay. So that's why, so if you see this particular logic, so when task is moved to a section, what is the section name? Code review or QA. And task is not assigned to Sanjay. In that case, it will be assigned to Sanjay. Say for example, task is assigned to Tarun. In that case, when Tarun will complete the coding and unit testing and will share it for the review, move it to this code review or QA bucket, the task will be automatically assigned to Sanjay. But if some task is not assigned to Sanjay, if task is assigned to Sanjay, Prakash will be the second person to review those things. So it is implemented in this way. So let's see how it works. Let me go to the list view again, because in the board view I cannot actually move the task from one bucket to another. I shall have to depend on the list view. So first, moving this task in progress. Now all the tasks are in progress state. Now check how this rule will be triggered. I am moving to code review. The task is assigned to Prakash. Okay. So once it will move to the code reviewer key phase, then it will be automatically assigned to Sanjay. Let's see whether it works or not. See, it moved and it is now assigned to Sanjay. Similarly, it is assigned to Tarun. When it will move, it will also be assigned to Sanjay. And the final one, which is assigned to Sanjay himself, as per the rule, when we shall move it, it will be assigned to Prakash. Let's see. See, it is assigned to Prakash. So in this way, rules which are based on events will be executed based on when the trigger will be actually executed. Now see how we can set up a custom rule here. So another rule which I created, that I also demonstrate you later. So when task is moved to a specific section, right, the section is done, then we shall automatically mark the task as complete. Now let me create another rule, custom rule, so that you will be able to see how these things are working. But before that, let me move this task, at least one task, this task in progress, so that I shall be able to demonstrate also. Okay, let me, sorry, I shall have to move this task in the to-do, because what rule I shall set up, that is whenever a task will be assigned to in progress, then it will automatically assign the due date 3 days from the current date. That is the rule I shall set up. So in that case, I need to move it in to do. Now here from plus add icon. So here are the list of rules. Some rules are already defined. Some standard rules are already defined, just like priority is changing when complete the task. Task is moved to a section, complete the task, that I have implemented. When the task is moved to the done, the task is completed. For this custom rule, let us set up from here. Now if you see, there are 3 sections: when, check if, and do this. In the when means in which situation we shall have to execute the rule. Task is moved to a section. Now check if, task in section, section is in progress. Now the final part, do this. What action will be taken? Change due date to, set due date to, set due date, trigger date plus 3 days. So today is Friday, 29th of August, and when this will be triggered today, so it will be, actually the due date will be on Monday. Let's see whether it works or not. Okay, the rule I also published and saved. Let me first move this from today to do to in progress. See, the due date is assigned to Monday. So in this way rules are executed. So we shall have to define based on which trigger the action point will be executed. Now the final one, what the rule I created, when a task is moved to the done state, it will be marked as complete. Let me just move this task to done state so that task status will be changed to complete. Yeah, that is. Yes, task is marked as completed. During daily stand-up, this board view will be represented in front of entire team, so that team will be able to know in what is the state of each task which are actually assigned in current sprint. So if now the stand-up meeting is going on, I shall be able to clearly understand that out of 3 tasks which were assigned in the current sprint, 1 is done and 2 are in progress. Now if any task need to change the state, so in the board view, one is limitation in actually Asana that we cannot directly move it to the next section. For that we shall have to depend on the list view. List view we can easily do that. Just see these 2 tasks are in progress. We can assume that this is completed, so we shall have to move it in code review or QFS. So you just change the state, so it will be there in the code review or QFS. Now when I shall deep dive into the details of the task, so if you see that every information is there, here is a provision to add the comment also. Subtask I have not added here, because if task is broken down into multiple subtasks, that will be done during the sprint planning meeting itself, or maybe sometimes in the backlog grooming session also. So I am just showing you that here's the provision. So if you need to add any subtask, you can do it from here. Now in the comment section also we can tag any other team member, say for some blocker for this particular item. This item is assigned to Sanjay. Sanjay needs some help for some particular item from any of the team member, maybe from Tarun. So in this way he can tag Tarun. So whenever this comment will be entered, a mail will be automatically triggered to Tarun. So Tarun will get the notification. And also in the during the daily stand-up, so team can discuss about these things if anyone get some notification or something. So from the comment section you can easily identify that Sanjay required help from Tarun for this particular item. And there is a provision to attach file also, if you think that some file need to be go through to resolve this issue or whatever I am asking. So some more information will be available. That data can be shared in the form of file, in the form of attachment. Okay. So in this way Asana will help to conduct the daily stand-up. It will represent the board view in front of the entire team, and whenever any task need to be discussed, that can be discussed, and from the details comment also everyone will be able to see actually, so if anything is entered there or not. So in this way Asana will support the daily stand-up for the team. Now once the sprint is over, then the team should complete the demo with all the stakeholders to validate what was the progress. Now from done column you will be able to easily identify which stories or backlog items are completed. Now one point is that, so we are maintaining a single board here, so there will be multiple sprints. For any particular sprint, maybe we can get the items in to do in progress or code review QFS, the backlog items for that sprint only. But whenever any item is complete, we'll go to the done. After completion of 2 or 3 sprints, maybe even after completion of first sprint, the previous sprint items also be visible there. So to overcome this problem, so you can implement the filter here. If we can add filter to display in the board which are the current sprint items or backlog items, then we can easily, maybe we are currently in the sprint 3. So here what filter we apply, the sprint is backlog or sprint 3. So in that case only backlog or sprint 3 items will be displayed in the board, and from the done column you will be able to easily identify which items of sprint 3 are complete now, and we shall have to conduct the demo based on that. But as currently we are in sprint 1 only, I have given the filter as backlog and sprint 1. So we have taken 3 items for the first sprint, 3 are completed. So based on that the demo will be done. So now after the demo is done, then the final stage is the sprint retrospection. For sprint retrospection, so I have created a separate project here. It is in template form because this structure we shall follow, because sprint retrospection will happen after end of every sprint, right? So there will be many number of sprint retrospection. So what I shall do, I have created a template project, and here if you see from the board view, I have included different columns. Typically what is discussed in any sprint retrospective meeting, that team first discuss what went well, what could be improved, and what are the action items need to take, and whether it is implemented or not. The final column is action items done. Here I have included another column like kudos or shout outs. I propose to include this column because it will help the improve team morale. Say someone actually was stuck in an issue and some other team member helped him to resolve this. So first person can call it out here and thank the second person for this help. So it will increase the team morale. So that's why that also can be mentioned, and every point will be documented here as part of a task. Now before going to the details, why I am telling, so I have created this template, and I shall register in Asana this as a template, and after that in the beginning of every sprint retrospective I shall create a separate project for that particular sprint retrospective from this template. But before that I want to show you another thing. This kind of standard template for sprint retrospective is already available in Asana. You can reuse that also from there, but I have created the custom because I wanted to add some additional things like kudos and shout out column here, and I am showing you how the current sprint retrospective default template is available in Asana. So create a new project, use template. Here is the sprint retrospective. So you also can use this template directly, which is already there. Here I need to mention the name of this project. Create project. See, this is the standard. Okay, Now as I have created my custom template project, and based on that I shall go forward. I am not taking the input from here, so I am just deleting it for the time purpose. Now this template sprint retrospective already created, I shall mark it as a template in the system. How I can do that? From here, manage duplicate, let me manage project, edit project details, and duplicate, save as template. So I shall have to click save as template, so that it will be saved as a template, custom template, and later I can use it. Title of the template, I am not changing anything. Privacy, anyone in the team can edit. Let's pick it so that everyone will have the access to edit it, because it is a sprint retrospection, so every team member's active participation in this board will be required that time. So I need to ensure that everyone will be able to edit the template. Okay, now this template is created. Okay, so I am creating the first sprint retrospective project from this template. So let me give this sprint retrospective and let me give a date also for this. So anyone will be able to easily identify later in which date this event occurred. Okay, now create the project. So you see, from this template, this particular sprint retrospective project is already created, and now I shall have to enter the item during the meeting. Every team member will participate, and they will update here what went well, what could be improved. So everyone will create a task from their own, based on that what is their belief that what went well. I am just giving one sample. In the task name, actually we can enter. Just for an example, I am just giving the first one as deployment process was smooth and reliable this sprint. So this was the one good thing which happened during the sprint. That's all. I shall not enter anything else, only the name of this task, so that anyone will be able to easily identify what could be improved. Here also, let me give an example, like the definition of done was unclear. For a few stories. Leading to rework. Okay. This is one sample. What could be improved from the next sprint? So one team member noted it down. Now during the meeting, first five 10 minutes, every team member will participate and note down. So whatever the items or whatever the things went well and whatever needs to be improved, so multiple items will be entered in corresponding column. And also what I told earlier, so if there is anything that team member got help from any other team member, that also they can notify here, just as an example. So Torun got some help from another team member, Prakash, to help him in the debug. So Torun just mentioned here as part of a thank note kind of thing. So now first 5-10 minutes, every team member will be busy to populate these 3 columns. There will be multiple items in each column, and once it is done, next 15 to 20 minutes, team will decide what they will discuss together. Before that, once everyone completed their entry in the first 3 columns, for first and second column, it will be requested to vote. Say Prakash has entered this item, deployment process was smooth and reliable in this sprint. And Sanjay also decided that yes, it is good, it is rightly mentioned, we can discuss this in jointly. In that case, both Sanjay and Prakash will mark it like. Similarly, maybe 2 to 3 members also decided and identified that this common item, and they decide that yes, it is a point that really didn't good and we need to improve. They also mark it as a like. So in this way, after the end of this 5 or 10 minutes discussion and brainstorming session, team will identify in which items most of the team member agreed that yes, this thing happened, either in positive end or in negative end, and those items will be picked up for the discussion. Because you know that every sprint event is a time bound activity, so we always need to keep everything in time. So to avoid any infinite discussion, so we need to follow this kind of practice. Now next 15 or 20 minutes, team will jointly discuss what will be the action points. based on their discussion, that yes, whatever the problem was happened or whatever good things was happened, team will discuss. For each agreed upon action need to be created a new task in the action item to do column. Say what went wrong, and team identified as per example that definition of done was unclear for few stories. So one action item can be need to validate and finalize definition of done during backlog grooming session, or okay. Now here I am adding not comment on description, just need to elaborate this point. So what we can suggest, there is only one bucket for the backlog. We shall create another bucket and we'll name it as ready for sprint. That means maybe there are 100 items in the backlog. It may be difficult to identify from these 100 items which are ready for sprint. Why I am asking to create another bucket? Because during the sprint planning it will be easier for us to collect the set of items which are completely ready to start work. So instead of going through the backlog, if ready for sprint is another bucket created, from there we shall just pick up the items based on team's capacity. And whenever during the backlog grooming session everyone agrees that everything for a particular item is ready, the estimation is ready, the definition of done is very much clear, and what exactly need to do, that is also clear, then that item will be pushed into the ready for sprint bucket. Okay, so this I can give more elaborately in the description section as an action item. Okay, now it is action item to do. And here also another important thing I forgot to mention, we shall have to give a due date. Okay, say today is 1st of September, by maybe 5th of September this should be done, and we need to assign one person as owner for this. So I am assigning Torun. To take it forward, so that Torun will, whatever we discussed, Torun will create a separate bucket for ready for sprint, and during our next backlog grooming session we shall identify which items were already 100% complete to pick up in the sprint. We shall move those items in the new bucket, and during this backlog grooming session if additional item we are agreed that 100% clarified, then those items also we shall move into the ready for sprint bucket. And going forward, in sprint planning meeting, this ready for sprint bucket items also only we shall consider to pick up, and in this way we shall be able to eliminate this issue later that some incomplete requirement like definition of done is not clear. So this kind of thing we can easily avoid. So in this way, using the Asana, we can conduct successfully this sprint retrospective meeting. And action item to do, it is done. To do is mentioned. So whenever Torun will complete this action item, so he will move it to action item done state so that it will be visible to everyone. Next sprint retrospection when it will happen if sprint duration is 2 weeks. So after 2 weeks, then previous sprint what action items were identified and what was the status, whether it is done or it is still not done and it is in to do, that can be identified, and based on that further corrective action can be taken based on this particular sprint retrospective event. Sprint retrospective event is actually so to identify what are the problems occurred and whatever the good things happen, so that we can do the required adjustment. But sprint retrospection is also a particular items in which also whether we have followed the process correctly or not, that we should measure. So in this way, if we can get the visibility, whatever action items we identified and dividing into 2 buckets like to do and done, we shall be easily able to measure that whatever action points we discussed in previous retrospection, whether it was action upon or not.